السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with uh, Ma'arij Al-Qabul, and we start at page 634. The previous chapter was about Al-Ruqa, Ruqya, and continuing with the subject, what's permissible, what's not permissible. The previous chapter was about Al-Ruqya bil-Qur'ani wa Sunnah, which is very obvious that this is something that is permissible, it's recommended even, as we heard in the hadith and the ayat of the Quran. But now this chapter is about الرقى بألفاظ مجهولة المعاني. To make ruqya, but with words, alfaz, that is unknowing the meanings of it. Things that does not have meanings to it. As mentioned before, the Prophet ﷺ, he said to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum when they asked about the ruqya, he said, اعرضوا علي رقاكم. Present to me the ruqa that you have. And he said, أرق ما لم تكن شركا. Make ruqya as long as it's not shirk. So it has to be understood. It has to be with meanings that is understood, and not just things that might be signs of certain things or things of, even as well. They said it has to be with the Arabic language for a person to make ruqya, and it's understood, something that has meanings to it. And of course, the best way that for a person to stay upon the Quran and the Sunnah and not to go beyond that. But then he says here in the lines of Sulam, Al-Wusool, these 4 lines, inshallah, he says, I'll read them first, inshallah. أما الرقى المجهولة المعاني فذاك وسواس من الشيطان وفيه قد جاء الحديث أنه شرك بلا مرية فاحذرنه. وفيه قد جاء الحديث أنه شرك بلا مرية. It should be depends on the ضبط here. فاحذرنه بلا مرية فاحذرنه إذ كل من يقوله لا يدري لعله يكون محض الكفر أو هو من سحر اليهود مقتبس على العوام لبسوه فالتبس. Again, أما الرقى المجهولة المعاني فذاك وسواس من الشيطان وفيه قد جاء الحديث أنه شرك بلا مرية فاحذرنه. أو the ضبط here فاحذرنه because of the line of the poetry. فاحذرنه إذ كل من يقوله لا يدري لعله يكون محض الكفر أو هو من سحر اليهود مقتبس على العوام لبسوه فالتبس. على العوام لبسوه فالتبس. So we'll go through them inshallah ta'ala. But first, he says here, أما الرقى, as for الرقى التي ليست بعربية الألفاظ ولا مفهومة المعاني. Now count how many things that he mentions here. As for the ruqa, الرقى is the plural of الرقية. If it's not بعربية الألفاظ, not in the Arabic language, ولا مفهومة المعاني, number 2, not understood when it comes to the meanings of it, ولا مشهورة, not something that is known, ولا مأثورة, and not مأثورة from الأثر, from الشرع, from the Quran and the Sunnah. في الشرع البتة, absolutely nothing of the like of it in the Shara. فليست من الله في شيء. This is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any matter. ولا من الكتاب والسنة في ظل ولا في. And it's not from the Quran and the Sunnah. في ظل ولا في. A ظل is the shadow, and الفي also, but it's metaphorically speaking here, that means it has nothing to do with the Quran and the Sunnah whatsoever. بل هي وسواس من الشيطان. Rather, this is وسواس من الشيطان أوحاها إلى أوليائه. He inspires his awliya, his helpers, his loyal ones, with these types of ruqa. كما قال تعالى وإن الشياطين لا يوحون إلى أوليائهم ليجادلوكم. The shayateen, they inspire their awliya, the loyals to the shaitan, so that they argue with you. So أما الرقى المجهولة المعاني. So as for الرقى المجهولة المعاني, there is المجهولة from الجهل بالشيء, not knowing something that there's no meanings to it. فذاك وسواس من الشيطان. This is وسواس from الشيطان. And he says وعليه يحمل قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث ابن مسعود. عليه, upon that meaning, is the statement of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام to be understood accordingly. إن الرقى والتمائم والتولة شرك. And this hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, the authentic hadith, that is الرقى والتمائم. الرقى here in this context, it's mentioned at the end, the shirk is what is shirk among the ruqya, not every ruqya, of course, because of the other hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. And at-tamaim, the amulets, the things that people hang to bring benefit or to push away. At-tawala is one of the forms of amulets of tamaim, but it's specific for jalb al-mahabba, to have someone inclined towards someone else, to make someone love someone, like between husband and wife and the like of this. So all of that, these things are all shirk, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said. He says, وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ الْمُتَكَلَّمَ بِهِ, that is because al-mutakallam bihi. You know, when someone is mutakallim, is the doer, is the speaker, al-mutakallim. Al-mutakallam bihi is the speech itself. Al-mutakallam bihi. So ism maf'ul. So there is al-mutakallam bihi la yadri أهو من أسماء الله تعالى. What is being said here, a person, if he doesn't know the meanings of it, he doesn't know whether this is from أسماء الله تعالى, because the ruqya is dua. The ruqya is nothing but a supplication, dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the person that you make ruqya for. So when someone is saying something that is not understandable, something that is not understood, so a person doesn't know whether this is from Asma'ullah Ta'ala, أو من أسماء الملائكة, or the names of the angels, أو من أسماء الشياطين, or the names of shayateen, because again, this is something that is not clear to what is being said. ولا يدري هل فيه كفر أو إيمان. Is he calling upon other than Allah, or it has kufr or iman? وهل هو حق أو باطل, true or falsehood? أو فيه نفع أو ضر, أو رقية أو سحر, whether it's benefiting or harmful, رقية or sorcery, because it's مجهولة المعاني. The معنى is not known. He says ولعمر الله لقد انهمك غالب الناس في هذه البلوى غاية الانهماك واستعملوه على أضرب كثيرة وأنواع مختلفة. ولعمر Allah, this is swearing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking about at this time and in many places this is the case. لقد انهمك غالب الناس. انهمك, الانهماك, it means they are so much immersed in it. So انهمك, يعني someone that is so much focused in his work, for example, they say انهمك في عمله. So this is what inhamak means. Someone that most of the people are so much focused on it. And that's why the ham is the concern. So people are indulged in it. في هذه البلوى, in this calamity, غاية الانهماك, to the max of it. واستعملوه على أضرب كثيرة وأنواع مختلفة. And they used it, meaning these types of ruqa that is not understood, things with at-talasim, almost every talisman or amulet that a person would open to see what's in it, you would be amazed of how many things that is you would find in it, people writing in it. Some things that is understood and other signs, signs that has no meaning. So it doesn't have to be words that is not understandable, but it's signs, طلاسم, as they say. واستعملوه على أضرب كثيرة. They use it in many different ways, أضرب, many different cases, وأنواع مختلفة. فمنه ما يدعون أنه من القرآن أو من السنة. Some of it they would claim, يدعون, that it's from the Quran and the Sunnah. ومن أسماء الله المثبتة, أو المثبتة فيها, and from the names of Allah that is established in the Quran and the Sunnah. Some would claim this. Well, if it's from the names of Allah, write it down, or at least say it. It's a ruqya to be said. وأنهم ترجموه هم من عند أنفسهم, and they translated it from their own selves. بالسريانية أو العبرانية with the different languages أو غيرها whatever language وأخرجوه عن اللغة العربية and they changed it from the Arabic language. He says ولا أدري إن صدقناهم في دعواهم هم يعتقدون أنه لا ينفع إذا كان باللغة العربية التي نزل بها القرآن. يعني لا أدري, the author is saying I do not know if we believe them in their claim that this is from the names of Allah and things like this. Do they believe that it doesn't benefit if it's in the Arabic language? Why would a Muslim make ruqya without the Arabic language when the Quran is in the Arabic language and using the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Arabic in one's dua? But we're not talking about general dua, we're talking about ruqya. Person reciting something with the intention of benefiting oneself or others with matters of cure. So this is healing, has healing to it. That's why it should be only in the language of the Quran. التي نزل بها القرآن. That's different than someone to sit and make dua in whatever language there is, saying, oh Allah cure me, oh Allah cure this person. That's not ruqya. When it comes to ruqya, reciting something with the intention of that there's something, blessings in what is being said that would cause by the will of Allah means of cure. That's why it should be only from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But for those who use the evidence that the Prophet ﷺ, he approved for the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, الرقى ما لم تكن شركا, as long as it's not shirk. But then you have things that is not with the language of the Quran. And how would a person know? التي نزل بها القرآن وتكلم بها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالسنة حتى يترجموه بالأعجمية. Why would they translate it if do they believe that it doesn't benefit in the Arabic language so that they would translate it to another language? أو أنهم يعتقدون أنه بالأعجمية أنفع منه بالعربية? Or do they believe that it's in the أعجمية, which is other than the Arabic language, it's more benefiting? أو أنه ينفع بالعربية لشيء وبالأعجمية لغيره, or it benefits in the Arabic language in some things وبالأعجمية in other things, ولا تصلح إحداهما فيما تصلح فيه الأخرى. It's all possibilities. Why would someone translate what's from the Arabic to something else? Or maybe it works for one and not for the other. أم ماذا زين لهم الشيطان وسولت لهم أنفسهم. What is the shaitan adorned for them and made it easy for themselves to do it. أم ماذا كانوا يفترون, or what they forged or made up. ومما يزعمون أنه من أسماء الله تعالى التي ليست في الكتاب ولا في السنة وأنهم علموها من غيرهما. Or what they claim that this is from the names of Allah, that it's not in the Quran and the Sunnah, and they got to know it from other than the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is all what he mentioned here is from actual things that the people, they would say and they would write in these types of ruqa, and that's why a person should be very careful and to stay away from it. He says, فَمِنْهُ مَا يَدَّعُونَ أَنَّهُ دَعَى بِهِ آدَمُ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. You would find all kinds of things, they claiming that this is what Adam made dua using, أو نوح أو هود أو غيرهم من الأنبياء, and other than that from the prophets. وَمِنْهُ مَا يَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ إِلَّا فِي أُمِّ الْكِتَابِ. And some would even say that it's only in al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. And mashallah, how did they get to know that? ومنه ما يقولون هو مكتوب في البيت المعمور, was written in البيت المعمور, only the angels enter. There's no doubt that as far as the words of praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is far beyond what we even know in this limited life that we're in. No doubt about this. But we are only confined to what's in the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We got to know what we are permitted to know from the revelation from Allah. Otherwise, there are, of course, beyond our understanding and our capacity, means of praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that people will get to know in the hereafter, as the hadith which shows this. So, but then it's permissible for someone to claim that they have some of these things? Of course not. The Sahaba would have been then better than them in this, or even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and nothing has been hidden from the deen of Allah. ومنهم ما يقولون هو مكتوب على جناح جبريل عليه السلام. Again, anybody can say anything that they want, and these are things that are actually said by some of these people. It's written on the wing of Jibril عليه السلام, أو جناح ميكائيل, or the wing of Mikael, or جناح إسرافيل, أو غيرهم من الملائكة, or other than that from the ملائكة, أو على باب الجنة, or it's written on the gate of Jannah, or غير ذلك. No evidence whatsoever in matters of unseen like this, nothing. It's just their own hallucinations. He says, وَلَيْتَ شِعْرِي, متى طالعوا اللوح المحفوظ. Then again, ليت شعري, as we hear ليت شعري, that means it's a wishful statement that for something that is impossible to happen. So متى طلعوا اللوح, when did they look into اللوح المحفوظ, that is the secret of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has in it قدر, فاستنسخوه منه, and they copied from it. ومتى رقوا إلى البيت المعمور, and when did they get elevated to البيت المعمور فقرأوه فيه, and they read it there. ومتى نشرت لهم الملائكة أجنحتها فرأوه, and when did the angels نشرت, widespread their wings for them to see what's written on the wings. ومتى اطلعوا إلى باب الجنة فشاهدوا, when did they get to see the gate of Jannah فشاهدوا. And before we continue, you might think that this is, how can people believe such hallucinations and things like this. But believe it or not, this is one of the ways of shaitan. And even today, at all time, now it's a present thing. There is so much work that is being done, and it's an industry to spread among the Muslim world this deen al-khurafa, the fairy tale religion that has no basis to it. Just like that. That's as you, exactly as you hear like this. Someone would claim that he has some connection and he saw this, or the Prophet ﷺ came to him in his dream and he told him this and he told him that. You know, any shaitan can say whatever they want. Then there's no deen anymore. The deen is wahy from Allah, Quran and Sunnah, and it's completed. It's preserved. There's no room for these types of things, and that's why to understand our Aqeedah and to understand how we understand the deen of Allah, it's not open for anyone to say whatever they want to say. We have wahy from Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected it and been practiced. So كلما شعوذ مشعبذ, we talked about al-musha'widh, is the one that is like a sorcerer, someone that is dealing with kahana. Usually and it refers to those who lost their minds. They become insane. وتحذلق متحذلق. التحذلق is when someone is saying things of no benefit whatsoever. This is what التحذلق means. When they say تحذلق فلان when he was speaking, that means he claimed that he's very eloquent in his speech. Become very extreme in the way that he say things. الحذق, that means he's showing himself to be eloquent when he's not. وأراد الدجل على الناس, and he wanted to الدجل, like الدجال, he wanted to lie to the people, والتحيل, and to deceive them, لأخذ أموالهم, so that he takes their money. And people pay lots of money for these things, and you'll be amazed of how much money people pay for the nonsense like this. لأخذ أموالهم طلب السبل إلى وجه تلك الحيلة. He would seek all kinds of paths to get this hila, or to get this perception and deception. ورام لها أصلا ترجع إليه. ورام, that means, and he sought to it something of foundation that it returns to it. فإن وجد شبهة تروج على ضعفاء العقول وأعمياء البصائر وإلا كذب لهم كذبا محضا. If he finds any doubt or تروج, to sell basically for the people of weak minds and blind basira and vision. وإلا كذب لهم كذبا محضا. Otherwise he would just lie to them, pure lies. وقاسمهم بالله إنه لهم لمن الناصحين. And he would swear to them by Allah that he is ناصح to them, he advised them, he wants what is best for them. فيصدقونه لحسن ظنهم به. And they would believe him because they have حسن الظن to him. So ومنه أسماء يدعونها, and from it names that they claim to be. تارة يدعون أنها أسماء الملائكة. Sometimes it's names of angels. وتارة يزعمون أنها من أسماء الشياطين. Sometimes they claim it's from the names of the shayateen. واعتقادهم في هذه الأسماء أنها تخدم هذه السورة أو هذه الآية. That these names serves this surah or this ayah. أو هذا الاسم من أسماء الله تعالى. And this is one of the names of Allah. فيقولون يا خدام سورة كذا أو آية كذا أو اسم كذا. يا فلان ابن فلان ويا فلان ابن فلان أجيبوا العجلة ونحو ذلك. This is actual words that they would use. O servants of the surah, or servants of this ayah, O so the son of so, and answer quickly, like this. وما من سورة من القرآن ولا آية منه ولا اسم من أسماء الله يعرفونه إلا وقد انتحلوا له خداما ودعوهم له ساء ما يفترون. And there's no surah or ayah or name of the names of Allah. They know it unless they would lie by intahalu. That means they would attribute falsely to it servants, as they claim. There's no such a thing. It's just something that they invent. وتارة يكتبون السورة أو الآية ويكررونها مرات عديدة بهيئات مختلفة حتى يجعلون أولها آخرة وآخرها أولا وأوسطها أولا في موضع وآخرا في آخر. Sometimes they would write the surah or the ayah and they would repeat it many, many times in different ways. So to the extent of which they would make the beginning of the surah the end, and the end is the beginning, or the ayah, reading it backward, and reading the surah, the middle first, and then like all kinds of things like that they invent. So I'm just gonna go quickly with that, inshallah, because there's no end to it. But just to show you, when people turn away from the Quran and the Sunnah, then it opens the door for all kinds of evil things. وتارة يكتبونها بحروف مقطعة كل حرف على حدته. Sometimes they write letters. Every letter is on its own على حدته. ويزعمون أن لها بهذه الهيئة خصوصية ليست لغيرها من الهيئات. That it has some special effect to it when this هيئة, in this way that it looks. And this is very common in these types of amulets that they wear and ta'awid and things like this. He says ولا أدري من أين أخذوها. So now the question is, he said, I don't know where they get that from. وعمن نقلوها, whether they received this from. ما هي إلا وسواس شيطانية زخرفوها. وساوس شيطانية زخرفوها. Nothing but whispers of shayateen, they adorned it. خرافات, fairy tales. مضلة, ألفوها. Deviating, ألفوها, they got used to it. ألفوها. وأكاذيب مختلقة لفقوها. أكاذيب, lies, مختلقة, made up, لفقوها. They patched it, they bring it. And of course, that's why they would bring some things that is true and they add to it all kinds of lies so that people will be deceived by it. He says, لم ينزل الله بها سلطان. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not bring any authority of it whatsoever. ولا يعرف لها أصل في سنة. It is never, there's no asl, it's not known whatsoever, even foundation roots of it in Sunnah, ولا Quran, nor in the Sunnah, nor in the Quran. ولم تنقل عن أحد من أهل الدين والإيمان. None of the people of the deen and the iman ever narrated anything of this. إن هؤلاء إلا كاذبون. They are nothing but liars. أفاكون, liars made up. They make things مفترون, they forge things. وسيجزون ما كانوا يعملون, and they will be recompensed of what they've done. وتارة يكتبون رموزا من الأعداد العربية المعروفة من أحاد وعشرات ومئات وألوف وغيرها. You see these types of things. That they would write رموز, طلاسم, signs from the Arabic numbers المعروفة, from أحاد, عشرات, مئات, وألوف. So all of the different types of numbers. So they would write it and they would think that this refers to something. And they are the only ones that they know these types of things. So this is how they do things. ويزعمون أنها رموز, and they claim, so whether it's ones or tens, and they would claim that this is rumuz, signs of something. الرمز is when you have a symbol to something. إلى حروف آية, to letters of a verse or surah. Numbers that they would say that symbolize a verse or a surah, أو اسم or a name, or أو شيء مما قدمنا, or anything of what we mentioned before, بحساب الحروف الأبجدية المعروفة عند العرب, by the counting of the حروف that is known to the Arab. وغير ذلك من الخرافات الباطلة. All of that is خرافات, made up stuff, nonsense, falsehood. Because the ghaib is only to be known in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. والأكاذيب المفتعلة المختلقة. And these أكاذيب, lies that are مفتعلة, made up, المختلقة, also made up. وغالبها مأخوذ عن الأمة الغضبية الذين أخذوا السحر عن الشياطين. Most of it is taken from الأمة الغضبية غير المغضوب عليهم. الذين أخذوا السحر عن الشياطين, those who took the sihr, sorcery from the shayateen, وتعلموه منهم. They deal with the sihr so much. ثم أدخلوا ذلك على أهل الإسلام, and they introduced that to the مسلمين بصفة أنه من القرآن أو السنة أو أسماء الله تعالى, claiming that this is from the Quran or the Sunnah or the names of Allah. وأنهم إنما غيروا ألفاظه وترجموها بغير العربية لمقاصد لا تتم بزعمهم إلا بذلك. And the reason why they changed the words of it and they translated it to other than the Arabic language for maqasid, some objectives that, as they claim بزعمهم, can never be attained except this way. ومنها ما هو من عباد الملائكة والشياطين ونحوهم. Some of it is like from those who worship the angels and the shayateen and the like of them. يأخذون أسماءهم, they take their names. ويقولون للجهال هي أسماء الله, and they would claim that these are from the names of Allah. They are names of shayateen that they worship besides Allah. ليروجوا الشرك, for them to spread shirk, بذلك عليهم. فيدعون غير الله من دونه, and they would invoke other than Allah. هذه مكيدة لم يقدر عليها إبليس إلا بواسطة هؤلاء المضلين. This is makida, this is a plot that Iblis is not able to do it except by the means of these deviant ones. وهو إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير. He calls his people to be from the people of the fire. والله تعالى يقول أولم يكفيهم أن أنزلنا عليك الكتاب يتلى عليهم. This is how the verses, أولم يكفيهم, isn't it suffice for them, isn't it sufficient for them that we brought down unto them the book being recited unto them. إن في ذلك لرحمة وذكرى لقوم يؤمنون. Indeed, in this is rahmah, mercy, and a remembrance for those who believe. And this ayah, it's something that we should really memorize. And it can be, and it should be, the principle, the foundation that we hold fast to. In all of these deviations and all of these innovations that people invent in the religion, and they say things and they do things, we say to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِهِمْ أَنَّ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابِ. Isn't it sufficient for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down the book onto the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Wallahi, the religion is very easy. And there's no confusion whatsoever if a person seeks the proper knowledge. The very simple question, did the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam do that? Did the Sahaba radiallahu anhum say these types of things? Is it something from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? And once a person allow himself to introduce something in the religion because what's wrong with that, then this is the ground for all kinds of deviations. And they would justify it for themselves. Have someone, for example, to do a certain ibadah, even dhikr, making dhikr in a way that the Prophet ﷺ didn't make it, even the hay'ah, even the way that how he looks like doing dhikr, for example. And they would say, what's wrong with that? Well, you open the door for all kinds of things for people to invent in the religion. We say to them, أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِهِمْ أَنَّ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ يُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ. Isn't it sufficient for them that Allah brought down the book unto the Prophet ﷺ? Who are we to think that we know something or that we do something the Prophet ﷺ didn't do? How evil it is for someone to claim something. And they would write it and prescribe it for their followers, and they would say this has barakah in it, and you get this from this wali and that, and all kinds of things. That is all shayateen and nothing else but shaitan is working, and nothing from the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا لَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ لَهُ نُورًا فَمَا لَهُ مِن نُور. Whoever seeks light, وَمَا لَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ لَهُ نُورًا. Now, without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has no light whatsoever. So it can be deception, yes, but the light is the wahy, the revelation from Allah. So the last part here, which is now when we hear all of these types of things, and there's so many things that is out there with the ruqa that is not valid and it's not permissible, and it's even can be shirk or not shirk, or a person know it or doesn't know it, whether it's clear in meanings or not clear. So now here he mentions the three conditions. ثلاثة شروط لجواز الرقى وكونها شرعي. Three conditions that we need to memorize them for the ruqya to be permissible and for it to be shar'i, to be religiously correct. He says فتحصل من هذا, as a result of what's mentioned from before, أن الرقى, that الرقى لا تجوز إلا باجتماع 3 شروط. It is not permissible unless you have 3 conditions. اجتماع, that means these 3 conditions, they have to be there. Not one, but the 3 of them together. فإذا اجتمعت فيها كانت رقية شرعية. If these 3 conditions are all there, then the ruqya is شرعي رقية. وإن اختل منها شيء كان بضد ذلك. And if any of that is اختل, that means it's unbalanced. الاختلال is when something is unbalanced. So it's if any of these 3 is not straightforward and clear, كان بضد ذلك, then it's the opposite of that. So what are these 3 conditions? Number 1, he says, الأول أن تكون من الكتاب والسنة فلا تجوز من غيرهما. It has to be from the book and the Sunnah. From the Quran and the Sunnah, it is not permissible to be done by other than the Quran and the Sunnah. And a person would say, but the hadith says, present it to me as long as it's not shirk. Right? As we heard in the previous chapter, especially when jahl and ignorance prevails and there's so many of it, how can a person knows that this is right or wrong? And this ruqya that a person would do for a benefit, right? Why would a person turn away from the Quran and the Sunnah when we have the perfect ruqya in the Quran and the Sunnah? So not to allow oneself to use any ruqya except from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? So أن تكون من الكتاب والسنة فلا تجوز من غيرهما. And if even someone says something that is not exact sentence from the Quran and the Sunnah, at least the words are from the Quran and the Sunnah, clearly. Not something that is not from the Quran and the Sunnah. الشرط الثاني, the second condition, أن تكون باللغة العربية, that it's in the Arabic language, محفوظة ألفاظها مفهومة معانيها. The words of it محفوظة, understood, meaning memorized, meaning preserved, known. مفهومة معانيها, the meanings of it are very clear. So فلا يجوز تغييرها إلى لسان آخر. It's not permissible to use it for any other tongue, not the other language. Or again, we're talking here about the الرقى, which is not just making dua. So there is ruqya shar'iyya and there is ruqya muharrama. There is permissible ruqya and there is non-permissible ruqya. So it has to be according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Has to be in the Arabic language. And the third one, أن يعتقد أنها سبب من الأسباب لا تأثير لها إلا بإذن الله عز وجل. What's the اعتقاد in the ruqya? That it's one of the means. سبب من الأسباب لا تأثير لها إلا بإذن الله عز وجل. Has no effect to it except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فلا يعتقد النفع فيها لذاتها. Not to believe that is benefit in it in itself. بل فعل الراقي السبب بل فعل الراقي السبب والله مسبب إذا شاء. الراقي, he took the means. Like you take a medicine, like you go to the doctor. The doctor is not the curer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the curer. So الراقي, he's not the curer. And whatever he says is all means. والله مسبب إذا شاء. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-musabbib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that makes the means would have the effect of it and things like this. So this is basically al-ruqya al-shar'iyya. So when we say that it has to be according to the Quran and the Sunnah, or dua mashru', dua from the Quran and the Sunnah, even if it's not exact words of a specific dua or a ruqya from the Quran and the Sunnah, that a person would recite it unto himself and to others for means of protection, and the matter is very clear. Right? So it has to be by the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his names and attributes, what has been authentically proven from the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he says, Al-Quran huwa shifa'u tam. The complete cure is in the book of Allah. Min jami' al-adwa. From all of the ailments and diseases, al-qalbiyya wal-badaniyya. Heart and physical and everything. Wa adwa ad-dunya wal-akhirah, and all diseases in this worldly life and the hereafter. And but not everybody is fit, and nobody will yuwaffaq, have the tawfiq to be cured. So the person has to use it in the right way, and he has to have the strength in his heart that he's relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to use what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted, and to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by knowing that everything is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for the non-permissible ruqya, as we heard, there's no limits to it. People invent things, right? So this is when definitely, for sure, no doubt, if it's not in the Arabic language, this is not permissible, right? And this can be means of sihr and sorcery and the like of this, and the things that we heard before. So to stick to these conditions, that it's from the Quran and the Sunnah, it's in the Arabic language, and not to believe that it's a mean in itself, that it's by itself benefits or harms, but it's a mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it as a mean for cure. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from it. And we'll stop here inshallah before talking about al-tama'im wa al-hujub. Then barakallahu fikum. There's no questions, then we'll stop here inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit from what we heard and to protect us from shirk and deviations. We continue inshallah ta'ala next time. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.